Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the relaunch of Cannon Chat. Absolutely buzzing to be getting this underway tonight. Sadly, due to unforeseen circumstances, it's just me and Dem featuring tonight, which is no problem whatsoever. Dem, great to have you on, mate. It's been far too long. How's things going?
Yeah, thanks for having us back, mate. It's all good here. Not the two opening game results we wanted, but I'm still feeling quite positive. So yeah, looking forward to it.
No, great to have you on, mate. And as I say, really good to be relaunching this series. And hopefully, throughout the season, we can try and keep this a consistent thing. Whether it's just me and Dem, whether it's me and a few other guys, hopefully we'll get Verds involved again throughout the season. But I mean, tonight, what I really want to talk about with you, Dem, is obviously those opening two games. What have you made of Arsenal so far? We've had that defeat at home to Manchester City. You were, of course, at the game, myself as well. It was disappointing on the opening day, but I don't think it really took us by much surprise. And then to go to the Bridge and put in a performance that I think was a lot more encouraging than what we've seen at the Bridge in recent years. I mean, what have you made of Arsenal's start to the season? What have you made of this new dawn under Unai Emery?
To be fair, I think it's kind of gone as I expected. I mean, if you look at our results in these games last year, we're 1 point worse off than we was then. I think Emery's had 6 weeks to try and enforce his tactics, his philosophy on the players, and you can see bits and bobs coming through, but he's not going to make miracle workers in the space of 6 weeks. Man City won the league last year, and Chelsea won it the year before. They clearly have a better squad who know how to put that into a consistent basis better than we do at the moment. And you need to give him time. I know everyone keeps saying it, but that is it. Let's see how he is at Christmas. Let's see where he gets on at the end of the year. I mean, there's definitely stuff to work on, but there's some real positives in there as well. I mean, Mkhitaryan's goal at the weekend, Emery ball playing out from the back, 18 passes, was it? There's definitely stuff there, but I think it's exactly as I expected it, to be fair. Didn't think we'd beat Man City. I thought we might nick that to Chelsea, but I think overall 0 points. But look, next 8 games are important for us, aren't they?
Do you think last season, let's say Arsene Wenger was still in charge this campaign. Do you think we'd have got anything more from the games that we've already played so far?
Not at all. I mean, if we look back over the last couple of years, how many times have we won at Stamford Bridge or got anything at Stamford Bridge? I think it's probably 2 points out of the last maybe 5 or 6 games. I think we've only scored 1 or 2 goals previously before Saturday. So I don't think we get much there. And last year we got turned over 3-0 and 3-0 and 3-0, the Carling Cup and then the home game, back-to-back games against Man City. So I really don't know. I think actually the results we're seeing right now are more from the Wenger era. And I don't mean to blame it on Wenger, but 6 weeks is very hard for anyone to come in and really impact. You look at Klopp, you look at Pep, they all took time. It took them 12 months to get them to play the way they wanted. I think this is more a case of the back end of how we're playing last year or the last couple of years than anything to do with how Emery's started his Arsenal career.
Going off the point you make there, I don't know if you caught Monday Night Football last night, but Gary Neville, I'm sure you've seen the clip, made an excellent point about pretty much stating the obvious that Arsenal and Unai Emery will need time for this system to adjust. And right now, this season, and I think a good chunk of next season, he will be assessing certain players and questioning whether they'll be able to fit into his system at Arsenal. Mesut Ozil in particular is one of those players that's coming under the spotlight, but it's not just him, it's almost every single player that's been part of that Wenger era. And there are going to be some players that aren't going to be able to adapt to this system straight off the bat. It will take time. But what have you made of Emery in his first, it's only really been 6 weeks of competitive football as such throughout that pre-season, and now obviously into the Premier League as well. What have you made of the system that he's trying to play? And do you think that we've got the squad that's capable of playing such a high intense pressing game, given that we've played something almost entirely different to that during Wenger's reign?
I think it's hard to tell right now because we've got such a small sample size. I think pre-season you could clearly tell that Emery wanted to give everyone a go and just look at everyone. Even his last friendly against Lazio, he didn't really play what we would class as a strong team. It was actually what you'd see as mostly the second string. I mean, Nelson, Nketiah, there's lots of players that not even featured in the squad recently. So I think you can only look at the last 2 games. It's quite hard to say right now. But I think there are players that will thrive in this and hopefully with the right coaching can develop. But I'm also worried about certain players, whether you like us or you don't. I think we're going to have to utilise him because he's our highest paid player. I can't see us, if Emery doesn't like him and he doesn't fit into the team, how are we going to move him on with the salaries on? And will anyone pay the transfer fee that we want? So I think there's a few dilemmas in there in that aspect, in terms of there's certain players, Pierre, Lacazette, that are on big salaries that you're going to have to try to make work before you move them on. And I think Emery's going to need 2 or 3 transfer windows to really, first of all, to understand the players, and then secondly, be able to move the players out that can't adapt to that system, and get new additional players in. But I really like the idea of pressing. I like that, being on the front foot, defend from the top. Not so sure about that high line that we had at the weekend, but I like the idea of pressing and really trying to win the ball up high at the pitch.
Do you think this current crop of players have got the ability to play such an intense pressing game? Because I look at who we've got on the flanks, and it's predominantly been players like Mesut Ozil, Henrik Mkhitaryan, and I don't think Mkhitaryan is decent at the pressing game, but Ozil, for me, isn't really capable yet of playing that intense pressing forward game, and neither is Aubameyang to an extent. I think a lot of it comes through players like Aaron Ramsey in the middle of the park, Guendouzi. I think he's essential to this style of football. But for me, I don't think we've got the players in that forward line just yet to be playing this system all the time. And as you mentioned, that high line, I think Emery as well has got to look at what we can do with this current set of players. And I don't think he should completely disregard his idea, but I think it's a case of being careful and being tactical in certain games. There are times when you can play this high pressing game and knowing when to play it. But I think if we're consistently playing it with players that aren't necessarily capable of adapting to it just yet, I think that's going to cost us. I don't know if that's something that you'd go along with.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you've got to accept, with a change of style, that we're going to drop points, that we're going to concede goals by it not working. If you buy into it, and if you want it, if this is how Emery wants us to play, we've got to accept as players, as fans, that we are going to get caught. The press isn't going to work at times, and we are going to be 3-on-4 or 4-on-3, and we're going to concede sloppy goals. But I think Emery has to. I get it. I know what you're saying in terms of, if you don't feel that those players can do that, so Ozil will struggle with a high press. Pierre doesn't look like it's his natural game. But unless you give them a go against professionals, in the Premiership, how are you going to know if they can adapt and they can develop that? So I do think that we're going to have to persevere with it and give it a go. Try this new pressing system. Try to get people like Ozil, Mkhitaryan, and Pierre to adapt to the way Emery wants to play. And if it doesn't work out, then we're going to have to look at that, moving them on in the next transfer window or during the summer. But at this point, I think you've got to try to utilise our best players. So we've got to try to get Ramsey in the team, got to try and get Ozil in the team, and try to get them to press. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to have to bench them. And I think we've seen that already. Ramsey in the Man City game got taken off early. Ozil at the weekend got taken off early because it wasn't working. And as long as he doesn't have favourites and he sticks with that, so we try to use our best players as much as possible. But if it's not working, they don't start, or if they're in a bad run of form, they sit on the bench. Then I'm happy with that, because if we don't try, we're never going to know. I think it's too early to make clear-cut calls on all players at the moment. I want to see a whole season to see what he can do with them.
What have you made of Emery's team lineup so far? Because, the one against Chelsea was quite different to the one we saw against Man City. I think it was quite a surprise inclusion to see Iwobi come in and have a fantastic performance as well, may I add. He was absolutely immense during that game at Stamford Bridge. But also to see... Yeah, exactly. But even to see Aaron Ramsey dropped, which I think came to the surprise of many, myself included, I don't think he was unbelievably poor against City. I honestly thought he came off in that game due to a slight injury, and I thought maybe he'd carried that through into the Chelsea game, but it doesn't seem like he's carrying anything in a minute. It does seem to be purely about his performances. And then all this stuff has come out in the media about, Ramsey's camp are trying to get him to either play, or it's going to be a case of him leaving, which is not really how the script planned out. But it is quite worrying in that sense, because Ramsey is a key component for this Arsenal team. And I don't think his pressing game was particularly poor against City. I think it was just a case of he bombards up the pitch far too often. He doesn't need to do it. He's one of those players that has to be sensible and press at the right times with the rest of the team, rather than just consistently do it on his own. In that regard, what do you think these lineups spell for players like Mesut Ozil, who got hooked against Chelsea, for Granit Xhaka, who got hooked against Chelsea as well, and in particular for Aaron Ramsey, who didn't even start the game against Chelsea?
Well, I think we've got a number of our so-called big players all want to play in the same position. So you've got everyone from like Xhaka, Ramsey. You've even got the new guys, so Torreira, Guendouzi, Ozil, Mkhitaryan, even to a certain point, Iwobi, Lacazette, Pierre. They all want to play down the spine. Someone's got to miss out. And if that means, I'm still under the impression that if Ramsey didn't sign a contract, we should have given him a very much an ultimatum during the summer, so either sign it or go. I really didn't want us to be held to ransom. And I'm a massive Ramsey fan. I think he adds so much to our team. One of the better box-to-box players out there. But I was very much under the impression that new with Graham, don't sign, then go. And I think it comes down to that again. And we need to be hard on players. If they're not playing well, stick them on the bench. Don't play them. Try to pick the best formation, the best players for the formation, rather than, as we've done over the years with Wenger, where we play our best team rather than our best formation. So we're round hole square pegs a lot of the time. So if that means one of Ramsey or Ozil has to sit out, so be it. I think one of the things that improved us from Man City to Chelsea was just the fact that you could clearly see that Iwobi and Mkhitaryan were told to hold a bit more width. Whereas when Ozil played out there, he doesn't do that. He drifts in, and I think that does affect us sometimes when you've got so many people that want to play straight down the centre.
Yeah, definitely. And one player that is missing out on quite a bit of football so far is our new signing, Lucas Torreira. I mean, how do you see him slotting into the team? Because with Guendouzi playing so well, and with Xhaka, I think for most people, he is a staple in this Arsenal team, despite all the criticism he gets. Emery obviously has got a lot of faith in him, despite hooking him against Chelsea. And I think it was clear to see how poor our distribution was in the second half against Chelsea when he came off. But he's a player that, again, like a lot of players in this team, needs to improve. He does give the ball away an awful lot. But, I mean, for that kind of, it's hard to call whether it's a midfield 2 or a midfield 3 at the minute, because it does seem to be so fluid at times. Where does Torreira fit into that midfield for you, Dem?
Well, I think before we answer that, Cliff, we go back to the Xhaka situation. I think even though he was particularly poor on Saturday for his standards, or what his standards should be, he was involved in every attacking move that we had in the first half. As soon as he come off, our distribution of going from the back to the forward was really impacted. And I don't think Torreira quite has that long ball or the link between the defence and attack as Xhaka does at the moment. So I think Torreira will sit in and he will act as more of the DM, and that should allow Xhaka a bit more freedom to not have to worry defensively, because we all know him running back to goal is quite a worrying sight at times. He's not the most defensive-minded person. But I think Emery's got a real big decision here, because Guendouzi's really played himself into making sure he starts. I think before the season, everyone had, it was clearly, in most people's mind that I spoke to, it was going to be Torreira, Xhaka and Ramsey in the midfield 3, and then you'd have Ozil and Mkhitaryan on the wings. I think Guendouzi's kind of played himself into the position of going, you can't really drop him now. So for me, I'd probably still start Xhaka at the weekend with Guendouzi next to him, and then put Torreira on the bench again and give him enough time to come in and adapt to the Premiership. I think we saw on Saturday, I mean, he was at top of the D, and Serie A is very different to the Premiership. You get a lot more time over there, and he lost the ball on the top of our D, and they ended up having a shot from it. So he's clearly not up to speed yet. And even for the goal, the Alonso goal, as much as we have a go at Xhaka for not tracking,
exactly the same. He left his man and he scored from it. So I do think there's a few bits for him to work on and a bit of room to develop. I think long term he'll be a staple in our team, and he's going to form a relationship, whether it will be with Xhaka or Guendouzi or Ramsey. He'll be the main defensive mid, and he'll be the person that's guarding that centre backs and really gives us the platform to then go forward. But at the moment, I'd probably go with Xhaka and Guendouzi.
Do you not think, though, that maybe we could play a sort of more of a midfield 2 of Guendouzi playing the Xhaka role, and then have Torreira alongside him?
I think long term you can. I just think it's a lot of responsibility for a 19-year-old to say every attack has to come through him, which, I mean, if you look at the way we play, and whether you really like Xhaka or you don't, because half the fans I speak to either hate him or they love him. Either way, it doesn't really matter. A lot of our football or attacking motions go through him. I think that's a lot of responsibility to go on a 19-year-old. Will he be able to do that consistently? You just don't know. I don't think you can drop him at the moment, though. So if you go with a midfield 2 and you're picking Torreira, then Xhaka, for me, gets dropped. Because Guendouzi's been our best central midfield, potentially our best player over the last 2 games.
I mean, the ceiling for Guendouzi is obviously massive, and you don't want to put too much pressure on him because we've seen what's happened to players like Denilson in the past, Jack Wilshere. You know, that we put a lot of pressure on their shoulders early on when they performed so well. And let's be realistic, it has been 2 games against quality opposition. But for this season, I mean, what do you see his role being? Because personally, I'd like to see him well managed. I'd like to see him come out of the team at times in place of a more senior player. But when he's playing such good football, it is impossible to drop him.
Yeah, and I think that's the big decision for Emery to manage here, because you remember we've got the Europa League coming up. Yeah, so there'll be plenty of games there if we do take him out the spotlight of the Premiership. And I do think we have to manage him because we've seen in the past. I mean, in Jack's breakout season, he played too many games, in my opinion, for a young kid, and I think that played a lot of part in multiple of his injuries moving forward. So I do want to manage him. I would like us to manage him properly and not give him too many games. But as you said, if he performs and he keeps putting in performances like he did against Man City and against Chelsea, you're not going to be able to drop him. And all of a sudden, you're going to see Xhaka or Torreira playing in the Europa League games, the League Cup games, rather than him. But at the moment, it's his position he's owning it. He's got to start for me on Saturday. He's been too good not to.
I mean, we are talking about having this problem in midfield where someone like Ramsey, Xhaka, Guendouzi, etc. are going to be dropped. They're going to be left out and someone's going to be left unhappy. But, I mean, it's the first time in a long time where we as Arsenal fans can say that we've actually got solid options in this position. And surely that must make you feel quite optimistic about this season.
Yeah, 100%. It's nice we're having a conversation here about who do you think you should start, rather than, as we normally are, going, well, we've got no central midfielders. We're having to play El Nene or a 19-year-old or someone you don't know, or bring back Coquelin from loan and Charlton because we've got no one else to play. Don't get me wrong, that turned out quite well for at least half a season, but it is nice having options. And I think you can rotate. You can pick the best 2 or 3, however the formation is that Emery's playing at the moment, for individual games. And I'd like him to be able to do that. I think Guendouzi will play a few games, though, because Emery previously at PSG, is it Robert? I can't pronounce
Rabiot.
Yeah, Rabiot. I mean, he was a young kid that played a hell of a lot for PSG during his time over there. So I do think he's going to play a big part in the season, but I do think he'll mix it up as well, and you'll see different connections at different points in the season.
You mentioned Mohamed Elneny there. He's not a player that I had on my agenda to talk about tonight, but it's an odd one. Arsenal's number 4. Funnily enough, I saw him in Blue Water last week in Carfan Warehouse. It's an odd one with him because, I mean, now we've got Guendouzi come through. We've got Torreira, we've got Xhaka, we've got Aaron Ramsey, all, you know, fighting it out for that same position. Why is Elneny still a part of Arsenal Football Club? Like, in the nicest way possible. Should he be at Arsenal, or should he have gone earlier on in the transfer window? I mean, could he? I mean, he could still leave.
Yeah.
Is there space for him at Arsenal, and is there still a position that's suitable for him?
I don't think there is at the moment. I think he's been phased out. I think Guendouzi wasn't meant to have the impact he did, or they wasn't expecting to be able to come in and own a spot like he has. And I think Elneny was going to take that last spot of being League Cup, Europa League. I just can't see how he gets into the team anywhere at the moment, because we've got Torreira, Xhaka, Guendouzi, Ramsey, and potentially you've got Ozil going for 3 spots. If you play 4-2-3-1, then obviously Ozil and Ramsey in number 10, and then you've got 3 other players, the other 2. Unless we get injuries, I just can't see him getting that much game time. But this is Arsenal. Look, I mean, how many times have we been at Christmas and we've lost 4 or 5 players? So we could be in a couple of months' time with Elneny in that central midfield berth anyway.
We'll probably have him at centre half, mate.
Yeah, we have done before.
It must be. I mean, one last thing on Guendouzi, because he's a player that I can't stop talking about. I'm sure you've seen that clip of him after Aubameyang's miss, where he's just absolutely seething on the ground, punching the floor. It's a little thing, and I'm not someone that wants to get too tied up in passion as such, but. I mean, it was good to see that, right? Really good to see him get so absorbed into the game, and it's so obvious that he cares about his football.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. It's the sort of player I am on the pitch. Sometimes a little bit too emotional, but I think since I first seen him in a pre-season game, to even some of the Arsenal clips of where he's hanging around with Lacazette and Pierre. Look, if you're a talented player, if you're one of the world-class players that we have, so Pierre, Lacazette's meant to be up there in terms of one of our better players. Yeah, you don't make friends with a 19-year-old unless he's got talent about him. Talent spots talent. He has something about him. Other players have seen it. Emery's seen it. We're now starting to see it. The player's going to be a top level player, and he clearly looks like he loves football, and he's got a bit of a passion about him. A bit of a he ain't going to take bullshit. So I really like him. I think he's going to be a big player for us over the next couple of years. I just want to be cautious with him and not put too much pressure on him as a fan base, because we're very, 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 very well known for that.
You briefly mentioned Alex Lacazette there. Do you ever wonder what's going through his mind at the minute? Because he's not started a league game just yet. He's come off the bench a few times, and he was, let's be honest, responsible for the goal we gave away, which resulted in Chelsea's winner, which was quite frankly really, really poor from him. But I do expect these two to start, Lacazette and Aubameyang, at some point soon. I'd really like to see it implemented against West Ham. I am a little bit worried that we haven't seen them play together properly just yet. We saw them have that spark at the end of the game against Manchester City for that 25, 30-minute spell. But apart from that, we haven't seen enough of them together, in my opinion. I know it's only been 2 games, but it's something I'm absolutely crying out for. There are 2 most clinical goal scorers. Are you ever so slightly worried about those 2 not playing enough football together just yet?
No, not yet. I think you've just played the Premiership champions and you've just played Chelsea away from home. I think you're an absolute, you really don't care about defending if you play both of those with Ozil. You literally got 3 players that will not track back, will not put in the leg work. I think most home games, you've got to be starting both of them. They've got 25 goals in them each, easily, if they hit good form. I think if you play both of those and they both get between 20 to 25 league goals, or even if they get higher teens, so 17 to 25, all of a sudden you're near enough at 50 goals just between 2 players. That's pretty good. You then chip in with a couple of other players. Ramsey gets 10 to 15. Hopefully Ozil will get 10, Iwobi gets 7. All of a sudden, you've got enough goals that could be dragging you into top 4 as long as we don't defend like we did in the first 20 minutes against Chelsea. I just think you've got to pick your games. You're not going to play both of those away from home against anyone in the top 6. I think at home against anyone outside the top 6 would be, for me, I'd start them every game. I think they're exciting. They clearly like playing with each other. They've got a good partnership on and off the pitch. I think they're going to score a lot of goals this year.
What have you made of Aubameyang's start to the season? Because obviously he wasn't overly impressive against Manchester City and against Chelsea, where he missed those clear-cut chances. That was a big cause for concern. Obviously, I still think he's a fantastic footballer, and I think he's still going to bang a 25 to 30 goal season quite simply. But it's not encouraging when you see him miss the chances that you would expect a player of his caliber to put away at the bridge. Are you ever so slightly worried about what's going on there? And I mean, how do you think things are going to develop for Aubameyang?
So I was more worried against the Man City game because he didn't really make any chances. He didn't really create anything. And when I say create, it's not like he gets the ball, beats a couple of players, but just his movement, being able to connect with players. I think the ones against Chelsea, don't get me wrong, him and Lacazette cost us that game because at 1-0 down, if he tucks that in, it's 1-1. They probably don't score the second. And if Lacazette doesn't give the ball away, if he just passes it to the right to Pierre himself, we probably don't go down 3-2 either. So I think both of those are big culprits in us losing. But I used to watch quite a lot of German football, and one of the things I think with Pierre is he's very much an XG striker. So he's more about, he'll have 3 or 4 good chances a game and score 1 or 2 goals, rather than only have 1 or 2 good chances but score 1 or 2 goals. I've seen him a few times and I've seen him miss big chances like that. But one of the good things about him, the reason why he is world class, is he constantly gets those chances. So I'm not too concerned about it. Now, if he goes along and does it again at West Ham, yeah, maybe we do have to start being concerned about it. But I think as long as he keeps creating those chances, he'll score them. I mean, as a professional footballer, he can't miss another chance like that, surely. I mean, it was, for someone like him, I mean, I think I'd have scored it.
Yeah, definitely. One of the players that's meant to be helping Aubameyang and Lacazette score goals this season is Mesut Ozil, who's come under the spotlight recently for his performance against Chelsea. Obviously, was taken off, not had a great performance in that game, and wasn't particularly flattering against Man City either. He signed this contract, £350,000 a week, and a lot of people feel that after that's happened, he's kind of plateaued. He hasn't really kicked on from where he's meant to be. I think a lot of people we've had this argument throughout Mesut Ozil's entire Arsenal career about his body language, about his contribution to the game, that he doesn't work hard enough. And I'm bored of talking about it, to be honest. I think we all know his qualities and we all know what he can bring to the game when he's on song. But for me, I've got to be brutally honest, in this pressing system, I don't think he's entirely suited to it yet. I think it's going to take a matter of time with him, but the chances he creates when he's got time and space on the ball in home games in particular, I think he's going to be key in creating opportunities for players like Aubameyang. But I don't know if it's the same for you then, but when we're pressing high and we're playing this high line, I just don't see the aggression from him to try and win the ball.
It's not his natural game, is it? Let's be honest, no one associates Mesut Ozil with pressing and winning the ball high up the pitch. But we've given him 350 grand a week. We've made him our key player for the next 3-4 years. We're going to have to find somehow how to use him, whether that's as number 10, whether it's deeper as a number 8 in the David Silva type role, or on the wing. We're going to have to find a way, because that wage ain't coming off our bill. The people that can afford it don't need him at the moment. So Emery's one of his biggest challenges is getting the best out of Ozil. Whether that's getting him pressing or dropping him, I don't know at the moment. But we need to make sure that we do get the best out of him, because we can't have 350 grand sitting on the bench week in, week out. And I get what you're saying at the moment. He doesn't look like he's suited to this style of play. But at the same time, he's come off from a bad World Cup. Let's give him some time to get fit. Let's get him back in the groove. We've just played the Premiership champions, Chelsea away. Let's see how he does against the lesser teams, try and build some confidence and hopefully build him back into the Premiership season.
He's coming up to 30 now, and I think for a lot of people it's a case of waiting for him to still explode onto the scene. But he's not young. He's certainly not young. He's a player that should be in the prime of his career. At this point, he really is. I don't want to say coming into the twilight of it, but when you get into your 30s, I mean, that's when people start to talk about you potentially winding down. I don't want to think that's his game just yet, and I certainly think he's not a player that relies on pace particularly. It's his vision that's so key to his game, and he doesn't seem to be losing that anytime soon. But I mean, I don't want to see him playing out on the wing too often, because I don't think that's suited to him. I remember we've done it so many times under Arsene Wenger. It just hasn't worked. He hasn't got the skills to track back and protect a player like Hector Bellerin, who has come under the spotlight a lot this season. For you, where would you like to see Mesut Ozil utilised this season for Arsenal?
Well, I'd like to see him deeper. I'd like to see him deeper in part of that three. If we're going to play 4-3-3, I'd like to see him deeper, because I definitely don't want him at the wings like you. If we play 4-2-3-1, then he's got to be a number 10. But he's got to step up, because, as I said before, we've got so many players that want to play down the centre, that if he's not doing it, someone else will. Mkhitaryan will step in, Ramsey will step in, Guendouzi's already stepped in and performed. I'd quite like to see him in sort of David Silva-esque role. Drop him back, play a 4-3-3, try and hold the wingers wide, get him on the ball and start dictating play. But how you fit in him, if you play him, can you have a Xhaka and a Torreira? I mean, that doesn't really seem like a balanced midfield to me. So I think there's complications for Emery to have there. We've got so many players that can play in that centre pitch. Trying to find the right balance and fit our best players in is going to be difficult.
One of the key worries for me is the width. I mean, you mentioned it there about wingers, but we haven't got any. Iwobi is, I mean, I think he did a very good job out wide, but I'm still unsure whether he's a winger, whether he's a number 10, whether he's a deep line midfield. I'm still not sure what his best position is. If you can make that left-handed side, hit that left-hand sided pitch his own, that would be fantastic. But on the right-hand side, Mkhitaryan, I still think isn't overly convincing there. And then the only other options we've really got are Danny Welbeck, who's again not a natural winger, and Reece Nelson.
Just before you go on, the problem with that is every person you've just mentioned there, apart from Nelson, they all want to play in the centre. None of them are natural wingers that want to hug the touchline. So whether they can play there or not, my biggest problem is none of them really want to be there. I mean, you saw Mkhitaryan and Iwobi at the weekend. Their best moments was when they started drifting in and then drifted back out. They're not natural wingers. And I think that's one of our biggest problems with this squad right now is we've got no width. No one that will just When we played Man City, Mahrez and Sterling literally hugged the touchline and really stretched the play. We never do that. Pedro and Willian did exactly the same in the first 20 minutes. Stretch the play, diagonal runs in. I know Walcott, a lot of people hated him, but he was one of the only people that did do that for us. He's gone. Ox done that. He's gone. We desperately need another winger to balance that team out, because none of the players at the moment want to play there.
So how do you think we conquer that this season? Because, I mean, as much as we want wingers and we need them, we haven't got them. So, I mean, how do we work around that?
I think Emery's got to be very strict in terms of positional play. So I've played a lot of hockey in the past rather than football. And it's just about being very strict in terms of the areas of the pitch you can play in. And just very, very easily, it sounds easier said than done, but getting them to work on the fact that every time we get the ball, they hold the width. And then as soon as they get the ball, okay, they can cut in. If one's wide, one can drift in a little bit. But I think it's more about the tactical now of just getting them to stay there. Even if that's not their natural position and they're not playing at 100%, we need them to keep that width, because otherwise Bellerin, Nacho will end up pushing up and we'll be at gaping holes in between either side of the centre-backs again.
Yeah, it is worrying for me, but on the plus side, I suppose it gives an opportunity to someone like Reece Nelson, who I'm sure will get opportunities in the Europa League, the League Cup, the FA Cup, and maybe he can stake a claim. But again, I don't think Reece Nelson was overly amazing throughout pre-season. I think he had some good moments, but I think, again, he's got to do quite a bit to really make a name for himself in this Arsenal team. But, I mean, that goes for a lot of these young players. It is exciting to see how much youth we've got coming through. One thing I do want to touch on is, of course, the defence, which has been spoken about so much. Mustafi, Socrates at the back, unconvincing against Chelsea and Man City, to be honest. Bellerin as well, going forward, brilliant, but defensively, again, shaky. Monreal, great outlet on the left-hand side. So pleased to have him back. But for the most part, that defence is really, really concerning. Dem, what have you made of it so far? And what would you do to try and shore things up at the back?
I think a lot of it stylistically as well. If you look at all four of those players, they're all front-footed defenders. They all want to nip in and win the ball. You can't have four players that want to play like that. I mean, for the Pedro goal, if you look at it, none of those players, or even the Morata goal, the centre-backs, one of them should have dropped off a couple of yards, but where they both want to be pushing up and winning the ball in front, all four want to do that. So therefore, none of them are really thinking about behind. I really don't understand the signing of the Greek lad. I can't think of his name.
Socrates.
Yeah, I don't understand it. He seems very similar type of defender to Mustafi. I don't think they play particularly well together. I mean, we could be proven wrong. I think we needed to get someone in more of a pair sort of defender, a little bit more calm, brings a bit more structure to the defence, can control it, rather than another Mustafi, because I think that's going to cause us a lot of problems this year. We're going to be too front-footed. We're going to be caught out behind, especially if we play this high line. Bellerin hasn't been very good defensively, but then playing next to Mustafi, who has quite a lot of mistakes in him and doesn't, if you was playing next to him, you wouldn't feel exactly very trusting in him. Not like he did when he was with Per. He was a much better defender. I think with the right centre-back partnership with Mustafi and someone like a Cos, who would drop off a little bit, I think that would bring out a bit of a better defensively Bellerin. I'd like to see Holding given a go maybe at that left centre-back slot. But apart from that, I think we've kind of made our bed with the defenders we've got, and we've kind of got to ride it out at least till January, probably to the summer.
Yeah, for me, it's the exact same as what you've just said there. Mustafi and Socrates, I don't think they're bad individual footballers at all, but I just think it's a case of they don't work together in the slightest. They are far too similar. There's a lack of height in there. There's a real lack of composure. It is very, it reminds me of when we played Koscielny and Vermaelen at the back quite a few years ago. It really, really reminds me of that. It's very chalk and cheese. They don't seem to work together at all. But we've got a massive game on Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff, which is, fantastic. We haven't had one of them in ages. West Ham at home. It's a massive game for us in terms of getting 3 points after the 2 defeats we've had. West Ham at home, who haven't had a great start to the season. Don't want to underestimate them. They brought in some fantastic players, Jack Wilshere being one of them, Lucas Perez being another. But Yarmolenko, I'm not going to list off all the players they made because they bought practically a new starting 11, but they've got to get this team working, and I'm pretty sure they're going to gel against us on Saturday, which would be unfortunate. But I mean, how vital is this game to us on Saturday, and how would you go about approaching it?
This game is huge for us right now. We need 3 points. We can't have anything less at home against someone outside the top 6 after losing your first 2 games. There'll be quite a lot of pressure on the Arsenal team this Saturday, from the fans, from the media, from themselves. We need 3 points. I don't think it's our season end if we lose, but or draw. But I think the longer it goes on for that first win, the more pressure builds. How I'd approach it, I think Cech stays in goal for me. As much as I was actually Leno to start the season, I think Cech, apart from a couple of dodgy moments in the City game with the ball at his feet, he was actually much better against Chelsea, and he's shot stopping. I mean, he's played very well in terms of actually the efforts against him. So I'd probably keep his place. Back 4 the same. I'd then go. It's a tough one. I'd probably go 4-2-3-1, and give Guendouzi, Xhaka, Ozil the 3 in the middle, and then depend on what Ramsey's fitness is like. If he's 100% fit, I'd want to start him. I really would, but I'd probably stick with Iwobi on the left and Mkhitaryan on the right. Iwobi on the Lacazette on the left, Pierre and Mkhitaryan, to try and stick 3 up front, try and get Pierre and Lacazette to actually get that partnership going, and see if they can bang in some goals. I think it's difficult. It really is. There's 100 different types of formations you can play for this game coming up. I just think at the moment you need Lacazette and Pierre to score. We need goals, and I think those 2 are our best option.
So you wouldn't be looking to play Iwobi after the game he's just had?
Probably not, no. I'd probably stick him on the bench. I think he was our best player, but Lacazette and Pierre excites me more. And I think if those 2 do connect, you've got goals there. Whereas we've seen before with Iwobi, as well as he's played, he's not the most consistent player. And it wouldn't do him any harm to come off the bench and have 30 minutes if we need him. I'd much trust Lacazette and Pierre to stick the ball in the back of the net than I would Iwobi.
What do you think the consensus will be in the Ramsey camp if he doesn't start this game on Saturday?
I think it's a big call, but at the same time, if he hasn't signed a contract and we've got players that are playing well, why start him? Why take that away from Guendouzi, who's been our best performer so far? I mean, if he had signed that contract and there was no, I guess, qualms in the squad in terms of, I mean, it's come out that his agent's pushing for more money and for him to play. I mean, we don't know if that's true, but if it is, stick him on the bench and show him that Arsenal Football Club is bigger than Aaron Ramsey. I want him to stay and I want him to play, but he's got to earn it at the same time. He hasn't been as good as he can be so far. And we all know Aaron Ramsey takes a while to get going. Once he's fully up to fitness, he's one of the best midfielders in the league, but sometimes it does take him a while to get there.
Now, let's say, God forbid, we don't pick up 3 points in this game, or we quite possibly lose it. How important is it for the fan base to react rationally? Because, I mean, let's say the worst does happen and we don't win this game. I don't want everyone to be flying off the handle just yet, because it is a process, and Emery has got so much work to do, because the squad is, quite frankly, a calamity at the minute. There is a lot of work to do in the defence, in the midfield, in getting that balance, in shipping out certain players that might not fit the system, to bedding into this, to getting players to believe and bed into the system. I mean, let's say we do come out of this game at 4:45 on Saturday and we haven't got the win that we so desperately need. I mean, how would you personally react?
I'd be gutted. I really would. I think this is a game that we can't lose. If we do, I don't think we need to be overreact. I think Emery needs to come out and be very open and honest with why it hasn't gone right and how he's going to fix it. So I think that's something that he needs to take on board. Well, he does do quite well, but to talk to the fans a bit more, because Wenger was very closed off. He didn't really give much away. But well, look, I'm not going to judge Emery until after the first 10 games. After that, let's see where we are. We need, if we get, I think it's 10 games, if we can get 20 points out of that, I think we're doing okay in the first, considering it's our first season as a new manager. I just hope, I mean, I've already seen, I saw a couple of tweets with Emery out after the Chelsea game. So if we lose against West Ham, God knows what will be going on. But no, I think we give him time. I think let's at least give him 10 games. If we haven't picked up enough points then start getting on his back. But he's taken over a club that was under someone's tutorage for 22 years. They only knew one way. Aaron Ramsey's only ever really had one manager. There's a lot of players in that. Bellerin's the same. There's a lot of players there that have only really been taught one way. It's going to take time. If the worst case does happen on Saturday, let's just relax, try and trust the process and just give it a couple more games. If we end up losing the first 3, 4, 5 games, then start panicking. But let's just win Saturday and we don't have to think about this.
I'm certain it won't be the case. I'm really confident it won't happen. The players we've got, the system encourages me. If we're able to go away from home and score 2 goals at Chelsea, that's really positive for me. I think last season, had we gone to Stamford Bridge, gone 2 goals down, I think we'd have gone on to lose that game about 4-0. I really do. And it shows great charisma from the club to come back and score 2 goals and make it, a very even contest in the end.
I saw a stat earlier today that was last season against the top 6, we only created 4 big chances throughout all the games. We created 4 in the first half against Chelsea.
I mean, it's massively encouraging. Really encouraging. Final note on the game against West Ham. Of course, we see 2 ex-Arsenal players come back. Lucas Perez, I mean, we'll brush that one aside, but Jack Wilshere coming back. It's going to be an emotional day for him, you'd assume. I mean, what sort of reception do you think he'll get from Arsenal fans? I don't think you really need to explain it, but it's obviously going to be odd seeing him in a West Ham shirt. And he hasn't got off to the best start at West Ham yet. Him and Mark Noble still trying to sort things out in the midfield, which does seem to be a very open and expansive midfield, which you'd hope we could exploit. But it should be a weird one seeing him back at Arsenal in a West Ham shirt.
Oh, it's going to be really weird. I mean, since I can remember, he's been an Arsenal player. I mean, the only other top I've seen him really in is when he's been on loan. I think he'll get a good reception, though. I mean, the Arsenal fans still love him. He still feels an Arsenal boy at heart. Like, I mean, it's a little bit stupid, but it's not football. But every time I think of Jack Wilshere, I just think of him, the FA Cup, singing, "What do you think of shit?" to the fans. Like, he is one of us. So I hope he gets a good reception. I also hope he doesn't play particularly well when we roll him over 4-5-0. If that happens, he will get a good reception. He'll get clapped off the pitch. If we end up losing, people will boo him because as fans, we're all quite fickle, especially in a crowd mentality.
I certainly hope we don't boo him. I really hope that's not the case. Final note, Dem, score prediction for the game on Saturday.
Well, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter at the moment predicting we're going to win 4-5-0.
You've just said it yourself, mate. Come on.
Yeah, I said I hope we do. I think we'll score a couple. But I don't think, I think the way we've defended so far, I think we've still got a couple of mistakes in this with the press. I'd like to think 3-1. I reckon he's going to get a couple as well. He's going to open up his duck for the season. Fantastic.
That'd be quality. And just as well, just before I wrap up, Dem, where can people find you on the socials?
So I'm just Demi_V on Twitter. So yeah, give us a follow. I only tweet about football, to be fair.
Fantastic. What more could you want? As I say, as Demi says, be sure to give him a follow on Twitter and hopefully we'll get him involved a lot more on the show throughout the course of the season. Again, apologies that we couldn't get more guests on tonight. Unforeseen circumstances have resulted in that, but it was still great to chat to you, Demi. I hope you've enjoyed it tonight.
Really good.
And hopefully we'll be back. We should definitely be back next Tuesday, 9 o'clock. And as I said at the start of the video, we can make this a consistent thing. But from me and from Demi, we'll be speaking to you very, very soon. See you later, guys.
Cheers.